I'm going to take you to East Africa and talk about, try to answer the question, can East African rift basalt sequester CO2? This is a study that is still in very early stages, and it was done together with one of my students, who is Jojo Coco. He's also attending currently. So it's still work in progress. We will ask for also, we are requesting for either collaborations or also questions that can help us to improve this. I am based at the Technical University of Kenya from yesterday, and I've been at the University of Nairobi for the last 10 years. Okay, so a bit of background. The CO2 levels in the atmosphere is increasing. This is not anything new. It's something we've known. And that as of today, it is about 420 ppm. And with the trajectory that it is taking, we are going to, the temperatures of the globe are going to increase. And so under the Paris Agreement, there is an urgent need to reduce the CO2 levels in the atmosphere and bring the temperature to between 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees. So solutions which are needed are those that can be able to reduce the CO2 that is already in the atmosphere, or it's going to the atmosphere, and other key innovations are needed to reduce release of CO2 into the atmosphere, and mostly from stationary sources. And this is, we are looking at industries which are over 8,700 globally, and they are still increasing by the day and also producing more CO2. So for solutions that can be able to capture the CO2 from these stationary sources, store it, and also sequester it, meaning that it is put in geologic formations in a way that they are not available for long geologic periods. These are already certain projects have been done, and most of the projects which were done globally are in sedimentary reservoirs. As you can see from this particular map, the beige colors are where you have the sedimentary reservoirs, which can be used for carbon storage. And the black dots are places where there have been projects and have been completed. And then also we have the purple color, which is the focus of today, is basically the basaltic formations. And as you can see, there's quite a number of them, flat basalts, and the focus of today is going to be within the East African rift system that extends from Ethiopia towards Tanzania. One of the key things, out of all the different methods that are used, why basalts? Basalts are very good for a number of reasons. One, they have the divalent metals or elements, for example, magnesium, iron, calcium, and these, when they combine with the CO2, then they form carbonates. So with these carbonates, then they can be stored and not available to the atmosphere for a long time period. So there are two main ways that have been used, and this project has mostly been done by the team at Carbfix in Iceland that have used that have sequestered CO2 into basalts, and they are either by adding water and CO2 into and pumping this, dissolving the CO2 in water and pumping this into the basaltic rocks, which forms the carbonate minerals. Others are also by taking CO2 and transforming it into supercritical or liquid CO2 and pumping it into rocks. And with this, then they are reactive and form carbonates. Compared to sedimentary formations, which take which are projected to take over about thousands of years to transform the CO2 into carbonates, basalts have shown up to 2 years, yeah, that all the CO2 that is sequestered in them is transformed into carbonates within 2 years. In the lab, this is even faster. There are studies that have shown between 8 weeks to around 40 weeks that all the CO2 that is pumped into the basalt are transformed. And this is because of the reactivity that they have. So this is just a picture where basically you see the carbonates, which are then formed normally in the basalt, in the pores, or any void spaces or vesicles that are available within the basalts. There are several projects. The leading one is in Iceland. There's also some studies which have been done in the US and also in Oman, but in Oman, these were done in peridotites, which are a bit different. The porosity is much lower than the basalts. So with this particular background, George, when he was an undergrad student at the University of Nairobi, he thought of carrying out review of how what is the potential of the Kenyan rift basalts by basically looking at all the other projects and reviewing about 150 articles on this particular topic. So this was already published in 2021, and we are currently working on the next step of this particular study. So why the Kenyan rift? A few things about the Kenyan rift is that one, it takes about a third of the East African rift. It has a length of about 900 kilometers. And so it's quite extensive in that way. There are extensive basaltic formations in the Kenyan rift. And there's also a very high geothermal gradient. Kenya is also leading in Africa in the geothermal production. It's currently producing a little bit over 1,000 megawatts of geothermal, and the potential is estimated to be up to 10,000 megawatts within the rift. So there's still much more ongoing. And with that, the benefit of the geothermal is that there is knowledge of the subsurface and how the system works. Another key thing also is that there is rapid industrialization. Kenya being a developing country, and there's a lot more effort to industrialize, and that means that more of industries are going to produce CO2. We are talking about industries such as steel industries, cement factories, and many more that have high CO2 production. And also the geothermal companies or facilities themselves also have some CO2 in the steam that are released. So the key parameters that are important for carrying out a geologic favorability of CO2 sequestration are four. This is what we looked at. First is the basalt characteristics in terms of what are the porosity, what are the extent, the volume, areal extent, thickness. And then we also look at the mineralogy. So those which has the rocks that or the minerals that are able to react with the CO2. And then also the elements that they have, yeah. And then the other thing that we also looked at was the subsurface temperature within the rift, and also the permeability, porosity of the various formations, and availability of water, because this is also one of the key things that is required in sequestering CO2. So from the work that was done, we focused on the basalts within the rift. Of course, there are others outside the rift, but within or around the rift, Kenya rift, we found 19 different groups from the Miocene to Holocene. And as you can see them in the figure, And we have some that are quite extensive, especially within the northern area compared to the south and central areas. We also looked at its structure in terms of what are they faulted or are they massive? Because for CO2 sequestration, the porosity is something that is quite important. The effective porosity that has been mapped for these different basalts is on average 12%, and it ranges from 1 to 30%. And also at depth, the porosity changes for the different rock groups. And the subsurface temperature, the rift has a very high geothermal gradient, which is greater than 200 degrees C per kilometer.
10 minutes now.
Okay. Thank you. So this is just a map showing all the different geothermal areas within the Kenya Rift. The ones that are mostly well developed within the central part of Kenya, which is Menengai here, and the Olkaria system, volcanic complex, and also within the Eburu. So these three are well developed, but the others are not yet well developed, but they have been mapped. The temperature ranges at about 500 meters below above sea level. The temperature ranges between 200 to 360 degrees centigrade. So of the basalts that we looked at, these were 19 different basalt formations. And we can see the thicknesses range from about 30 meters, which is in the central section, up to about 1,500 meters. And we also calculated the areas of each. And as you can see from these various highlights, the ones that are thick are much more in the north, like the upper Turkana. But you can see the aerial extent is about 808, but Lothagam is not as thick, but is quite extensive, yeah, and Kalakol. So each of these basaltic formations has different characteristics that we have looked at, and we get a total volume of all the basalts to be around 9,000 kilometers cubed. And I think these are very conservative estimates. The next step is basically to be able to use all the available well logs to quantify the various basalts. In terms of the mineralogy or the elemental compositions, we can confirm, yes, from the basalts which have been worked on, we see quite an appreciable amount of olivine, pyroxene, and magnetite, and all these are producing the needed calcium, magnesium, and iron minerals that are able to react with the CO2. And we also have a number of feldspars, of course, also that are able to produce the calcium as well. And this basically sums it up, saying that the elements that are there are suitable for mineral carbonation. Another key thing for this is for the carbon sequestration is availability of water. As much as the rift is semi-arid in a number of areas, we find that there are quite some large lakes. There are about 9 large lakes. They range in quality from fresh to saline. As you can see from the north part where we have Lake Turkana, and here we have Lake Victoria, which is not in the rift, but we also have Bogoria and Naivasha here, which are producing fresh to intermediate water that can be used for this sequestration. And Turkana has the highest quantity, as you can see from this. The pH, another source is the groundwater, which is estimated to be 619 million cubic meters. It also ranges in quality. We have from fresh to saline in different locations, and the pH always is also quite high, which is a bit more on the alkaline side. And this is also good. So with this information, we also recognize that there are some potential limiting factors. One, the key ones, which are technological or geological, we can look at leakage of the CO2, for example. Remember, we are working in the rift where we have significant amount of faults, and there is potential for the CO2 to be able to leak through the faults if this is not looked at. So another key thing is the induced seismicity, because the rift is active, is also seismically active, and by injecting fluids into the rift, the seismicity could be induced in one way or another. Another thing is the impact of the CO2 and other gaseous impurities on the injection wells. We are talking about hydrogen sulfide, which is quite high, and other impurities such as sulfur dioxide and nitrous gases as well that are also produced with the many of the geothermal wells. So these are some of the key issues that have to be looked into as we go next into the feasibility studies of trying to see the potential of sequestering CO2 within the Kenya Rift. And then there are, of course, the economic factors, which will depend on the project size, the location of the facility. So wherever there is an injection, where are the sources of CO2 that are going to be there? Because the transportation factors have to be looked into. And also the characteristics of the CO2 at source. And this is also linked with the other impurities that are available in the CO2. So to sum it up, the question again is, can the East African Rift sequester CO2? We think most likely yes, because of the thickness of the basalts that we have, the volume that is there, the availability of the reactive minerals, and of course, the availability of water. What is the outlook? Currently, we are actually working with or developing partners to be able to carry out some regional screening and be able to look at various hydrological characteristics so that we can quantify storage in the rift. We'll also have some lab experiments and studies to be done, especially looking at the reaction of various gases with the CO2, and also various gases with the CO2 on the basalts. And then also to be able to look at different kinds of basalts, because they are also mineralogically different in one way or another. So look at their reactions with the CO2 and most likely H2S mixed gases. And then the predictive modeling is also the next step that we are looking out to. So thank you very much for your time. I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot, Lydia. This is fascinating. We are a bit running out of time, but I think we just take the time to allow one or two questions. So if people have questions, yes, we have one already. Bob.
Yes, Lydia, quick question. Do you have any work with the Icelandic people at Olkaria, maybe to do direct air capture of CO2, such as they're doing in Iceland right now?
We don't have any direct contact with the people from Iceland, but we've been we are developing an MOU together with Olkaria and the geothermal development company, because most of the staff are actually trained in Iceland. So we are currently doing that, but we are also aware of different players who are also trying to carry out direct air capture, and then in a way see how to sequester it in a way in the area. So it's still in progress.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? I would have a quick one. You mentioned these different kinds of basalts, and they have a different capability of being suitable. How different can they be, and how different would the basalts be in Iceland and the basalts in Kenya? Because there are so many studies done in Iceland. Can we transfer this knowledge, or is there a gap? Do we need to fill this gap?
Actually, that's a very good question. The thing is that with what is it called? With work, there's a lot of work that has been done in Iceland, and actually we've tried to borrow a lot of it in the area. But when we look at the rift, especially the central area where we have a lot of geothermal activity, the basalts are occurring in various layers. Yeah, so there's also this range from basalts to rhyolites. Yeah, in the area. So what we are interested in is to be able to see the different ranges in terms of the chemical composition and how they can react with the CO2, because they are not quite the same. We have all these different impurities and also the alterations, alteration layers in between. And yeah, so there's a bit which we'll be able to borrow, and also others we think that there's a lot more learning that we will need to get from here. You've asked about the differences between the basalts mineralogically. I think I'm not able to quite say the difference between the ones in Iceland and the ones in Kenya, because even from the data we used, we found some of the basalts had no information at all in terms of the mineralogy. So I think it's still an area that we probably will be able to answer that question in maybe a couple of months, like let's say 6 months or so, but not now.